Welcome to Nosleep Reviews. I'm your host, Rainwalker, and today I'll be reviewing Carnivals Were Different in 1934 by Rhonnie 14. The story is told from the perspective of the author's grandfather. As indicated in the title, the story is set in the year 1934 and takes place predominantly at a circus freak show. Our protagonist, Tommy, resides in a low-income neighborhood in Savannah, Georgia, with his elder sister Helen. From here, the author goes further into depth describing life in 1934. As many know, the Great Depression is still going strong in the US. Crime is high and the police aren't too reliable, especially towards four working-class punks, as the author puts it. After a thorough description of life in this area and location, our protagonist and his friends Colin, John, and Ricky head to their local carnival. After riding the Ferris wheel and the wooden roller coaster, the quartet split off into two groups. While Colin and John head towards the House of Mirrors, Ricky coaxes Tommy to join him for something more adventurous. The more adventurous plan is seeing the freak show. The author describes the congregation outside the freak show as being a rather unsavory group of adults. Tommy is uneasy with the situation, but doesn't want to appear chicken in front of Ricky, who is 3 years his senior and whom he looks up to as an older brother. The freak show is called Reverend Rob's Shock Museum. As one might have guessed, the Shock Museum is run by Reverend Rob. He is described as a tall man, dressed in a black suit. He had the style of an undertaker and the exuberant smile of a used car salesman. A long cane accentuated his showmanship, his black preacher hat lending him an authority that was anything but evangelical. Among the first noticeable exhibits is the Chicken Lady of Chattahoochee. She is described as follows. Her legs were skinnier than sticks and shorter than twigs, but the rest of her was normal-sized. Normal, except for the feathers stuck to her white dress and pale skin. The woman's face was squished together, like melting human slime. Her mouth distorted, with the lips protruding to a form of vivid lipstick beak. The woman's stringy hair stuck straight in the air to form a blonde comb. With the speed of rolling marbles, her blue eyes scanned the crowd. Being a 10-year-old child, it comes as no surprise that Tommy is frightened by the woman. So much so that he is unable to take his eyes off of her as the rest of the crowd moves on. At this point, the Reverend comes back, grips Tommy's shoulder rather aggressively, and expresses anger. At this point, it's clear this is a man lacking redeeming qualities. Among the other people on display are a hulking muscle man with arms bigger than anchors, an old woman billed as the Witch of Waycross, who couldn't have been younger than 115 judging by the layers of wrinkly skin and patches of cobweb hair. But the most frightening to Tommy was a teenage girl referred to as the Pinhead of Panama City. This callous nickname is a reference to the girl's abnormally small head, likely due to microcephaly. Afterwards, the crowd moves on to an exhibit that is simply a group of nude Amazonian men and women. The exhibit is restricted to those 13 and over, thus Tommy is forced to be left behind. It's at this point that the story takes a much more frightful turn. Tommy wanders the rest of the exhibit by himself, and comes across another boy named Terry. What happens next? Well, you'll just have to read the rest of it for yourself. Overall, this story is great. The author built an immersive atmosphere with characters I can easily visualize. Their personalities are well detailed, and I would also call the antagonist rather memorable. I'm not sure it would be right to criticize the length of the story. At 5,300 words, it's longer than what I've usually come across on Nosleep. But that's not to say it drags. The earlier part of the story builds upon the mood and setting quite well. The story is worth its length, and I absolutely recommend reading it. The author goes by the username Rhonnie14 on Reddit. If you enjoyed this story, there are plenty more from this author provided in the links below. If you're interested in hearing more reviews, please consider liking this video, subscribing, and perhaps leave me a comment. I also narrate my own stories, which I hope you will also check out. Thank you for watching. I hope you will return for my next review and/or narration. I'm your host, Rainwalker, now returning to the shadows.